Hey, good morning. Happy Wednesday. How's everybody? Well, yeah, ready for a long weekend, I promise, for real. I wrote it up there and everything. It's on the board. And you have no idea how excited I was. I was given a brown pen this morning, which matches my brown outfit. And I was like, I'm writing it in brown, right? It's my favorite color. So I was very excited about that. All right, so we have no class on Monday. Happy and sad, right? Nice to have a long weekend, but I'll miss seeing you all. So we will have today and then we get a long weekend. So I gave you a homework assignment. I hope that it wasn't too like laborsome to do. But what I want to do is give you a few moments for you to kind of compare with the people around you. Then we'll talk about it together and I'll collect it. If somebody says something that you didn't add, feel free to add it, right? If you're like, oh, I should have written that down, go ahead and write it down. But find a couple of people around you, whatever is convenient, 2, 3, 4 people. Just kind of go through what you came up with. I'll give you a few minutes and then we'll talk about it together. So whoever's easy, but just kind of compare what you came up with.
Do you have an extra?
What was that?
Do you have an extra one?
I don't. I didn't bring any extra ones, but you can kind of follow along. We just got into this to talk about the homework if you want to join.
And then underlying concepts, right? Or behavior. And like so then behavioral, maladaptive thinking and learning. He was always seeking always seeking out high levels of stimulation, in already the versus Saturday. Times and fair so like maybe like a lot of it's from I just like to accessibility. This is so much. I know you know we'll play out here stuff. I and so he's a shipping and I say that and everything comes to us. I kind of said that to him. Yeah. That's where I moved on into. But yes. But I stuck with the maladaptive people. Oh, I think yeah. I think it's something so I said anything. Yeah. I didn't see. Yeah, no, I love it. So it sounds to me like that's what I
Wrapping up your thoughts, then we'll talk about it together. A few more seconds to wrap up. Give some ideas.
I have with the bullet point about their living. It was like learning plus conditioning and experiences. So much more.
All right, so I'm hearing like bits of really great conversations like around the room, so it makes me happy to hear. But Mark, right? So you can take any person, right? And this is obviously a fictional person, but you could take any person and look for these factors, right? We probably all have elements from different models that are going to explain like, why we are the way that we are, what we do, and where it came from. So let's look at what we came up with. Anyone have a biological contributor? Yeah.
I was thinking these could have been inherited from like some kind of dopamine regulation problem.
Yeah.
To mean right, you get aggressive
Mm-hmm.
or it puts people on that thing or more susceptibility to being addicted to it.
Yeah, right. That genetic piece fits perfectly in that biological like framework. Love it. Anyone have something else there? Yeah.
I talked about like the adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's sitting with his brain makes him like stage strong.
Yeah. Right. That adrenaline rush and we could even go with like thrill seeking kind of behavior. If you go with that too. Anybody, anything else there? Those are kind of big ones. Yeah.
I put his substance abuse.
Okay.
His father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So I just thought that he could have been pretty
Like predisposed to it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So kind of like bouncing off each other with that genetic piece
Yeah.
or that predisposition from something that his dad is struggling with. Those are perfect, right? So those are very big biological contributors. How about from a Freudian psychodynamic perspective? What can we say there? Yeah.
I said Mark's inability to sustain close relationships and raised us with trauma.
Okay.
And then from that view of this objective loss with unresolved conflicts and defense mechanisms.
Oh, yes.
Like there's another layer on top of the substance and different.
Yeah, right. So a couple of things that you said could fit in multiple spots, and I imagine we'll come back to that phrase right later as well. But that unresolved conflict, that early childhood abandonment, so Freudian, right? Those childhood conflicts with back. Great, yeah.
Yeah, I also similar to that, watching his parents get into constant fights, that was his only view of relationships, so that later in life, it made him not able to hold any like meaningful relationships.
Sure.
And he's probably just like repressing all those memories.
Yeah.
And he's not even aware of it.
Yeah, repression, defense mechanism for would be all over that. And then we could also put that watching them and could come back in behavioral model too, right? So it's interesting, like, and I hope you're kind of seeing this, depending on how you phrase it, you could take the same thing and put it anywhere, right? And that's kind of the point I want you to see with this, is these models are very overlapping, but you can look at them separately as well, which we're trying to do. How about behaviorally then? What could we, any bullets that we could add there on a behavioral model? Yeah. Yeah.
Like moments.
Right.
So you got to be how rest of
Modeling, observational learning, very much connected there, yeah.
I also talked about like the reward system where, you know, he helps
Yeah.
people and that. He gets rewarded with praise, which makes him, gives him motivation, and then. Also that he's kind of classically conditioned with the alarm sound, and then when he hears that, he gets that rush of adrenaline.
Yes,
And probably like, you know, so you just feel good of like yourself more.
yeah, right. Feel like such a proud parent right here. Great job, everybody. Like, right, you're seeing all these things, right? That modeling, the two different types of conditioning that are there. Did you have something you wanted to add or did you snag it?
Yeah, I said, his abandonment as a child has conditioned him now to believe like people will only let you down and leave.
Okay, so that became his like model of what things are gonna look like, which could very much go here. And I think that leads us also into the next one, right? Because that phrase, what would that phrase be an example of in the cognitive perspective? Did anyone have anything there that we can kind of connect with that? Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like since like we did request a lot of his trauma, he probably started adapting like limited perspectives about how the world could be. For example,
Yeah.
relationships don't work out, and I think that his thought processes were caused by his early experiences, and he probably, you know, a lot of his behavior stems from those thought processes now.
Yeah, right, those expectations and thought processes and like, it's very black and white thinking, right? That people only let you down or leave you. I mean, those things can happen, but there's probably other things that can happen too, right? Very like illogical thinking patterns. Anyone have anything else from the cognitive perspective? Those are the big things, but anything else? Yeah.
The cognitive that I'm talking about is just a tool.
Sure.
Like, like instigating fights and negative so keep going. I think I'm saying to myself, experience in childhood, no one felt them like okay,
Yeah.
That's kind of like reinforce that since I felt like every single time being get caught with reinforce that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, some rationalizations kind of happening too to explain that behavior. Love it. How about humanistic existential? I think maybe a little bit the hardest one. This one always feels a little obscure, right? In some ways, I don't know if you felt that way trying to find it, but anyone have anything here that we could add? Yeah.
I think that like being finding to be like finding others.
Yeah.
So just like this fact.
Yeah, right. What's meaningful?
Yeah.
Is a huge part. You know, I love that, right? Like, so what is driving and giving and meaning in his life? Anything else we can add from this one? Yeah,
I kind of just talked about how he really values feeling good about himself.
yeah,
That kind of outside appreciation for him and seeing how the people react when they see him working and how the kids react. When this firefighter teaching things. And that kind of helps him to want to have that motivation and
yeah.
help others so that they see him like.
Great, and that like doing good and reaching your potential, very like consistent with that perspective. And then finally, the socio-cultural one, there's some stuff there too. Anybody have something there that we can add? Let me just see if anyone want to jump in or stare over here for a minute. Anybody, or is that a hand? Yeah. Yeah.
Space around other people.
Yeah. That neighborhood, that environment that he was raised in fits there. Anybody else? Do you want to jump in? Yeah.
I kind of thought about how like the firehouse. Like establishes like pro social community.
Yeah.
You know, like sense of like belonging and in so you kind of like environment. Housing effect, like is part of this. You know, reaching people to be connected. It's not just the people that like who's in the firehouse, but it's also perhaps entirely.
Yeah.
Goes both ways, but who sees the place that when he understands that into like constant sense of like who's part of it.
Yeah, new culture, new, like you said, pro-social, right? Like kind of a good environment for him. There's one really other kind of bigger one that no one's mentioned it. Anything else here? Yeah.
So poverty often leads to lack of good food choices. So
Sure.
that's very, and lacked access of therapy, educational,
Yes.
self-educational opportunities, and just poverty has a lot of full effect.
Yeah, there's some of the effects that could have on him really globally. I also have down like his family, right? Yeah,
I also talked about how there's a lot of stereotypes and expectations
right.
associated with like being a fireman. And he probably goes and has to uphold all of those.
Yeah, that's great too, right? Those stereotypes and expectations there. Did you have a thought as well?
Oh, yeah, something similar. I was just gonna say that, like he grew up in a very like kind of negatively stereotyped situation.
Yeah.
Yes. His ability to lead a firefighter as an environment, so like an example of him, like working with obstacles.
Yeah.
And sort of like achieving my dream.
Yeah, I love that, right? His race matters from this perspective. We look at the expectations and stereotypes and things related to his race as well, yeah.
But we're saying domestic violence type household.
Yeah, his family dynamic, any culture, which could be a family, it could be an ethnicity, it could be an identity that you have. He has a lot of little cultures he's part of, right? And that would definitely be one that could influence things, yeah.
I mean, just having consistent father figure around and who would also dealing with addiction, puts me to helping something.
That's another culture, right? The culture related to addiction that could happen with his parents or with his father. Really, really nice job. Okay, and we're gonna move on from chapter 2 here in a minute. But these models, they come back constantly. When we get to the disorders, we're one chapter away with one more chapter to go, then we get to the disorders. But when we get there, we'll look at the big models for each one and how they spell out like what causes and how we treat it. But these models, they overlap so much, as I hope you really saw with this. You want to make sure your first and last name is on there and pass them up to the front of your row. I will come grab them from you. The disorders is to talk about how do we assess people? How do we diagnose people, right? We have to do clinical assessment, gather information, figure out the symptoms that somebody's experiencing to arrive at a diagnosis so we know how to then treat them. So last chapter is a precursor. We'll look at clinical assessment, diagnosis, and treatment. A lot of different ways that we can do this. And remember, the slides are online, right, if you need them. But what we'll look at, as I said, is clinical assessment. So somebody's going to come in, maybe it's to an appointment for therapy, or maybe even to a doctor's appointment, whatever appointment they're coming into. How can we take that person, gather the relevant information, and go from there? So as a cluster, we're talking about assessment. Okay? And when you take an assessment is in essence like a test, a way of gathering information. You take assessments in your classes all the time, right? They are assessing how well you understood the material that has been covered so far, like on an exam or whatnot. In a way, like the case study is an informal assessment of how well you understood chapter 2, right? You can assess anything. It's just a way of collecting and understanding relevant information about a subject, or in our case, a client, a person, right? How can we gather that information? And in clinical assessment, we're trying to determine why a person is behaving abnormally, how they're behaving abnormally. What are your symptoms? What are you presenting with? What are the issues that are popping up for you? And we usually do this through what we call a battery of tests. A battery of tests or battery of assessments, which means that we use several. Okay, so of all the ones that we're going to talk about, it might be that we use some combination of them to gather that information, because they're all going to give us slightly different pieces of information, right? And all of it hopefully will help us to arrive at a diagnosis so then we can then treat that individual. Hey, I found a little clip, it's from The Simpsons, maybe not the best version of assessment, but it features some assessment. Let me play this for you. It's a very kind of short introduction to a few different ways of assessing someone, not viable, valid, and all those things we want it to be, but a good example nonetheless. There's a few different methods. They take a little like questionnaire of sorts, right? Where he answers yes, no, maybe kind of questions. And then he looks at Rorschach ink blots, which we'll talk about as well. That's another way you can assess people. As a side note, insane or being insane or insanity is not a medical or like clinical disorder. It's actually a legal term. And we'll get there in chapter 16 at the end of the semester. But it's not a disorder. It's a legal term to decide if someone's in contact with reality or not. And they can understand the trial and the charges being brought against them. So just as a little side note, we'll get there at the end of the semester. But as you saw in there, they did a couple of different things. And before we talk about them, I want to mention these three terms. And now these three terms are really important for understanding whether or not an assessment is good or worth using. Okay, now I guarantee that every single one of you at some point in your academic journey have taken a bad test, right? A bad exam, a bad quiz. What are some of the things that made it bad? Like if you think back to that one that haunts you somewhere in your like history, what made it bad? Yeah.
Not studying.
Okay, that's on you, right? No, I'm just kidding, right? But yeah, okay, so not being prepared. Okay. But what about the test would make it bad? Yeah.
Not enough time.
Okay, you didn't have enough time to take it successfully. All right, yeah.
Like confusingly written.
Yeah, it was poorly written. Couldn't understand what they wanted. What else? Yeah. Me too, me too. Psychology doesn't require a lot of math. Yeah. Oh, that's the worst, right? Like we never covered this. Where did this even come from, right? All those things make it bad. Anything else? Get it out. Right? Anything else? Tests? Yeah.
It's always like. Questions.
Okay.
Like, there was like, arguing through and just between two questions.
So it threw you.
So like, I would look at every test I would take, and I would heard it in structure from our arguments.
Yeah.
Like the actual course.
Okay.
And it was more of like, you have some questions about chapter 6, some questions about.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
at the end.
Okay, that makes sense, right? I had a history teacher who thought it would be funny to have every answer be the same letter on the Scantron. And then he would randomly be like, except for number 19, right? And like, it threw me every time because you start to overthink it. I'm like, there's 20 questions and they're all B, right? Like, it would just mess with me. And I didn't even care at some point about the answers because I was so like obsessed with what letter it was going to be because everyone was the same letter. Or I had a developmental psychopathology teacher who thought it'd be fun to give everybody a different version of the test, right? How would that possibly be fair? Like, I was like, there is no way that that's fair. Like, no way whatsoever. She thought it was hilarious. Some people would have 5 questions, some would have 20, some would have 1, right? I'm like, how are you grading these equivalently? There's no way that yeah.
It was the obvious, but then you didn't want to state the obvious
Okay.
because then it was like too obvious.
It's too easy.
But yeah, so he made it like, just don't, he made it perfectly clear, don't think too much into it, which then made us think too much into it.
Sure.
So half the class got it right and half the class didn't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, funny, but not really if you're on the wrong end of it,
That's
right? Yeah, so if a test isn't structured properly, for all the reasons that you just mentioned and then some, the information or what you get from it might not be all that meaningful. Okay, so if a test isn't standardized, reliable, and valid, then the information you've gained might not give you anything meaningful, right? So with these terms, standardization means that you can kind of make a direct comparison between one person and another. Okay, so if I give everybody a different test, how can I directly compare the results, right? Is that actually going to help me have any kind of meaningful information? Think of a standardized test like the SATs, the GREs, the ACTs. There's a ton of those 3-letter devil tests, right? A bunch of them out there. But on the SATs, a 1200 means the same as a 1200, means the same as another 1200. You can make a direct comparison because they're all calibrated the same way or based on the same like metric. Another example with this, think of a scale. A scale is an assessment of your weight. I have one in my bathroom. I know better than to step on it, especially anytime near Halloween or Christmas or really any holiday, right? If I'm being honest. But I have a scale. If it's not calibrated right, that number means nothing. What if I step on my scale at home and it says a number? The one at the gym says a different number. The one at the doctor's office says a different number. Which one is it? Right? I'm going to have to take like an average and hope for the best. You want them all to be calibrated the same in order for it to be meaningful. Reliability means that it's stable or dependable. If I step on a scale today, I would hope that that number is relatively close to that number tomorrow. Okay, maybe if I had a really wild day of cake eating, it might go up by a pound or two. That's happened to me many times in my life, but it should be relatively close. It should be consistent, right? You want that with a test. And validity means it's accurate, right? It actually gives me a number that is like what it should be, or it's actually measuring what it's been designed to measure. If a teacher gives you questions about a topic you didn't cover, are they really validly assessing your knowledge of the subject you've learned? Probably not. Right, so you want a test to have these three things in order to be worth using. If it doesn't have them, the information is meaningless. So let me give you an example of a bad test. It's fun, but it's bad, right? And we can talk about why it's bad. My tiny little piece of paper here. Oh, that's so cute. On the top, my daughter, she filled it out. I didn't know she did that. That's so sweet. No, I'm saving that. Right? Okay. All right. It says her little name on it and everything. Oh, so that was last year. That was before she was a preteen. Now he's like 6th grade and he's too big to talk. I got thank you. Look at I'm like hobbling without it. It's right there. Don't tell me it. Right. Okay, so I'm giving you a very, very high-tech, involved Oreo personality test. So I want you to read through this, and I want you to pick the option that is closest to the way that you eat Oreos. If you don't like Oreos, there's an option for that as well. But read through this, and I want you to select the one that is closest to your chosen method. And because it felt mean to make you think about Oreos and not have them, I brought some, right? Yes. I couldn't decide mega stuff, double stuff, or regular Oreo. Right? I brought Oreos, so I'll pass them around. I'll even open these for you. And help yourself, I have like more than. We'll start the other one over. That way, if you're like, oh, Oreos, but now you don't have to be sad.
We need our name on this, and we have.
No, you're not turning on. It's my job. Yeah, please just pass them around. Okay. Okay. Have you all finished your very involved high-tech selection here? Okay. All right. So I have results for you. I have the interpretation of your choice. I would like to put out there that some of these are mildly offensive. But I think that makes them funny, so hopefully you agree. But I will read these to you, and then we can talk about why this is a bad test. Because it is a bad test. It's not good. We can talk about it. I gave you Oreos, I can't be mad at you. Okay. All right. Are we ready? Let me I'm gonna go through these. So how many of you chose number one? I need the whole thing all at once by show of hands. Anybody? Maybe two people. Okay, so whole thing all at once. You consume life with abandon. You're fun to be with, exciting, carefree with a hint of recklessness. You're also totally irresponsible, and no one should trust you with their children. Start you. You don't get to hang out with my children. All right, next one. How many of you chose one bite at a time? By show of hands. Lots of people. Okay. You are lucky to be one of the 5.4 billion other people in the world who eat their Oreos this exact same way. Just like them, you lack imagination, but that's okay. Don't worry. You're completely normal. All right. Slow and methodical nibbles, examining the results after each bite. Nobody's like, I'm not admitting that, right? And just in case it was you, okay. You follow the rules You're tidy and orderly, meticulous in everything that you do, to the point of being anal retentive and irritating to others. Stay out of the fast lane if you're only gonna go this evening. Alright, number 4, feverish nibbles. I picture a squirrel eating very quickly, right? Feverish nibbles or a raccoon. Alright, your boss likes you because you get your work done very quickly. You have a million things to do and never enough time to do them. Mental breakdowns tend to run in your family. Mildly offensive, right? Okay, number 5, dunked in some kind of liquid. All right, I'll raise my hand. That's one of my methods. Okay. All right, everyone likes you because you're upbeat. You sugarcoat your unpleasant experiences and rationalize bad situations into good ones. You're in total denial about the shambles that you call a life. Now you know, right? Okay. All right. Number 6, twisted apart the inside and then the cookie. Quite a few of you. Okay. You have a highly curious nature. You take pleasure in breaking things apart to find out how they work. Though not always able to put them back together, you destroy all evidence of your activity. You deny involvement when things go wrong. You're a compulsive liar and exhibit deviant, if not criminal, behavior. That was a lot of you too. I should be the same, right? All right, twisted apart the inside and you toss the cookie. All right. Judgment. Okay. All right. You're good at business and you take risks that pay off. You take what you want and you throw the rest away. You're also greedy, selfish, mean, and lack feeling for others. You should be ashamed of yourself, but that's okay. You got yours. All right. Just the cookie and not the inside. You enjoy pain. Yeah. All right. I just like to lick them and not eat them. Nobody ever admits to that one, right? Okay. Just in case, stay away from small furry animals and seek professional medical help. All right, number 10. I don't have a favorite way because I don't like Oreos. So I saw a couple like, all right, you probably come from a rich family and like to wear nice things and go to upscale restaurants. You are particular and fussy about the things you buy, own, and wear. Things have to be just right. You like to be pampered. You're a prima donna, and there's just no pleasing. Right? So this is obviously a bad test, right? Why is it bad? Like if we kind of connect it here, can you think of why this might be bad? Yeah.
It's not accurate.
Yeah. Is it? Right? Is it accurate? Like maybe tiny little bits of it, right? But it's so overgeneralized. Is it really accurate? What else? What else is bad about it? Yeah. Okay. Really subjective. That's fair.
If a good score.
Yeah. Okay. So that last part too, right? How many of you eat Oreos in more than one way? 2 different ways. Myself as well. I'm a Gemini. I've said this a few times, right? So I pick 2. It depends on how many Oreos I plan to eat. If I'm honest, right? So if I'm going to eat only a few, I like to dunk them in some milk. If I plan to eat like a row or whatever, or 2, or right, then I like to twist them. I eat the inside and then the cookie, right? So I skip the milk because it's going to make it harder to eat more. Right? So it depends on how many I'm going to eat. Maybe I like more than one way. So maybe today you answer one way and tomorrow you answer another way. Anything else you can think of? Anything else why this might be bad? Yeah.
Kind of predisposed to answers as to why we eat it in a certain way.
Okay.
Like how that explains us, but there might be other reasons as to the other explanation as to why.
Yeah, there could be other explanations. So I'll share with you. I have 2 ways of eating Oreos, but I haven't eaten an Oreo in like 3 years. And so right now I might answer number 10. I don't like Oreos, but it's not because I don't like Oreos. It's because my cousin smashed a spider into an Oreo and then was like, look what happened when I opened it. And I cannot get it out of my head. And so like in my mind, in order to eat an Oreo, I'd have to twist it, smash the filling, and then eat it. And that just makes me feel crazy. So I just don't eat that anymore, right? So it could be there's another reason for why you picked what you picked. Yeah.
I also see moving like
they made this a little line and that's fine.
Sure.
There's no way to go now.
Yeah,
There's no way. It's not.
yeah, it's definitely not credible, right? I have a hard time believing they did like a psychometric analysis of this text, right? Did anybody have a method of eating Oreos that isn't on here? Yeah,
I twist it apart and then eat the cookie first and get the housing inside.
okay, so you weren't on here because your method was different, so it doesn't account for everybody. Okay, my daughter, and she wrote it on here, which is so cute, right? Again, hold on, wait. My daughter does something called fish and dip with Oreos. It's not on here either. It's so gross, but she's done it since she was a little kid. She takes the Oreo, opens it, and then takes goldfish and uses the goldfish as a dip, right? She calls them Oreo dippers, and she scoops out the filling with the goldfish and eats them, and then the cookie. Right? She wrote it on here too. I eat it with my goldfish with a smiley face, right? And so she's done that since she was little. That's not on here, so it doesn't account for her either. So again, this is bad. You're not turning it in. Keep it like or share it with somebody if you want to. But you want a test to be good, to be worthwhile. But if I gave you that as a way to measure your personality, that information probably meaningless. So anytime you take a test of personality, of intelligence, of whatever it might be thinking in your mind, is this actually a good test, right? And these are the three things that generally make a test worth using or not worth using. We have two more tests that we'll take. This was the worst one, and then they get slightly better from here. Okay? So some of the ways that we can assess people, by far the most common from an abnormal psych perspective, clinical interview. And if you've ever gone to therapy, you've done a clinical interview. It's what they do on day one. Day one is all about gathering information. Why are you here? What are you experiencing? Tell me about your background. Tell me about your past, your history. Have you been to therapy before? Like asking you questions face to face or maybe like via technology to learn about you and what brought you in, right? This is like the first thing. Sometimes people take a long time to get into therapy and they go to that first session and they're like, all they did was ask me questions. It was awful. Okay, but knowing that that's what's going to happen helps. That is what the first session always is. And sometimes it even persists for a little while. But clinical interviews gather a lot of information. It's this conversation that you have. And what's really interesting is therapists are also performing a mental status exam when they ask you these questions, which you may or may not be aware of. They're looking at how you dress, how you present. Are you aware of where you are in this current moment? Like if I asked you, what is the date today? I would hope that you were close. Okay. Like, so maybe you don't get it right off the bat. Like I had to look, it's the 27th, right? But let's say I say the 28th or the 26th, I wouldn't worry about that. But if I asked you the date and you're like September 3rd, 1984, like I'd be concerned, right? Or maybe you're off by a year because the year just changed. That's okay. But if you don't know what day of the week it is, you don't know where you are, you don't know the dates, you don't know what class you're sitting in. Those are red flags, right? That a therapist would be recording and writing down. They look at how well is your hygiene. Are you like dressed appropriately, presenting appropriately? They're gathering verbal and nonverbal information about you to help arrive at a diagnosis. Yeah.
So, how would you tell the difference between someone who is actually like creating a psychosis state of mind
Sure.
versus no fake moment?
It might take a while. To be fair,
I was gonna say, is there any method of getting that they're faking it?
it's usually an inconsistency. Like, so somebody, if they were dedicated to faking, you could get away with that probably for a while, right? But typically when people fake stuff, there's inconsistencies that emerge, where they slip up, and those things tend to like reveal like where they're actually at. And the fact that they were faking it could then also be really meaningful and give you other information.
So my question that is like, say someone had some type of like antisocial, paranoid, personality disorder, like could you do the opposite and fake someone of like good intention, and then it would have inconsistency that way too?
Yeah, and oftentimes people who have antisocial personality disorder are very charismatic and charming on the surface. right? And so it could be that that's how they present for some time, and it takes a little bit to get to the real person, right? And oftentimes, in therapy, it's an ongoing like dialogue, right? And so those inconsistencies emerge, you see through the surface eventually, but it can take a while. I mean, sometimes clients present one way for a very long time, and it takes a long time to see the authentic person underneath, right? And that could be for a million reasons. So it could take a bit, is the, you know, the short answer, or the long answer, I guess. It could take a little while to find out. So this is very, very common, probably the most commonly used thing in a therapeutic kind of perspective. We can sometimes use these only if we suspect something biological is in play. So if we're wondering if someone has like a brain or anatomical issue, maybe there's some kind of damage, it might be that the therapist or doctor orders a psychophysiological test. This is that biological model. So let's say we're wondering if there's something going on in the brain that might be contributing to their behavior. We could order something like a CAT scan or a PET scan or an MRI. I've had a lot of MRIs recently of my knees, right? But MRIs and CAT scans and PET scans, we could look at the brain and see if something is abnormal, right? That isn't always done, but if we suspect that it might be helpful information, it's something that we could order as part of that battery of tests. So this may or may not be done, but it is one thing we could explore if it feels relevant. So if we see structural damage to part of the brain, or a part of the brain isn't lighting up like it should, that could be indicative of a disorder. Somebody's older and they have like some memory issues and we do a brain scan, it could be that we notice they have some sort of dementia, like Alzheimer's or Lewy body or Parkinson's or something like that, right? So this could be good information, but it's not always done, only when it's relevant. How many of you have had one of these tests at some point on some part of your body, right? They're very common, right? They're very, very common tests. Though all I can think of with the MRIs now is like Final Destination Bloodlines, if you've seen that, right? That's all I think of with MRIs. I went to do my MRI like 3 weeks ago. My daughter was like, make sure you have no metal. I will. I'm not going to get sucked into the machine. I'm okay, right? All right. Very commonly done in a school setting. So if anyone is thinking of being like a school psychologist or working with children, we do a lot of intelligence tests. Intelligence tests are designed to measure your intellectual ability. This, again, isn't always done, but if you have someone who's school-aged and we're wondering about learning disabilities or like aptitude or intelligence, this would be relevant. Now, with these tests, we are studying and trying to get your IQ. IQ exists on a bell curve, if you've ever taken statistics or taking it now, as you mentioned, right? You have a bell curve. Anyone know what the average IQ is? Average score for IQ? Guesses? Yeah. What was that? 100. Yeah, you had it. So the average IQ is 100. Most people fall within 1 or 2 standard deviations of them. Okay, so all of this in here would kind of be normal, typical IQ. But if you're over in the extremes of giftedness or delay, like intellectual developmental disorder, that's relevant information that could be helpful for a diagnosis. If we're wondering if you're on the spectrum or you have a learning disability, this would be something that we might consider. And the good thing about most intelligence tests is they have a lot of different ways of measuring IQ, right? Because we tend to have different areas that we're better at, right? Somebody said they hate math. Who was the one who said they hate math, right? Me too, right? Math is not my strong suit. My daughter last night was like, I need help with my math homework. And I'm like, that's nice, right? Like 6th grade math is too hard for me. I was like, oh, there are too many letters in there. I'm out, right? Thank you for Google, right? But there are different levels of talent. Okay, so the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Test is one of the most commonly used IQ tests out there. And it has, you don't need to know this, but, and I know it's small, but it has all these different scales on it, right? So it measures your vocabulary, your mathematical ability, how well you recognize missing components of pictures, how well you can find patterns. These blocks are my nemesis. They lower my IQ score every time. I hate them, right? They give you blocks in the picture and you have to arrange them and they time you. Right? Oh, every time it panics me and I'm like, oh, here goes my score through the floor, right? But these are all different ways of measuring your intelligence. And then when you're done, we average them together to get a score. And then we can compare that score, because it's standardized, to other people who've taken the test. And it may or may not be relevant information, right? So IQ tests are used a lot as part of like that battery, especially here with like children who are in like school age children. Is that a, yeah?
Type of test for like PBI.
For what? Say that again?
PBI, just if they're trying to determine go wrong, like if they're really wrong.
These are typically used for younger groups, but they can be used at any age. So it could be that they give it to you when you're older to see if there's some kind of traumatic brain injury of some sort, right? Or like a delay, or even like one of those neurocognitive kind of disorders. But they're more frequently used for kids, right? More frequently, but it could be used at any age. You had it too, yeah?
Yeah, I think it was the IQ test, like, I think I took it before, somebody in the beginning, like. Basically that you can study and you can get better at it.
Sure.
So like, what does that mean? Because like, for example, I remember there were these questions and they're like, how are these two things related?
Sure.
Like there's like some symbol in the middle, like I just understand it. One of them later I realized that they're just basically for like information.
Mm-hmm.
So basically like, I feel like these things can be, you can set with these tests.
You could?
Score.
Yeah.
So yeah, what with that?
Yeah, that'd be like me studying with the blocks, right? Like I used to, because we would give these tests in graduate school as practice. And in between, I would just play with the blocks, like I'm gonna get better. I never really got better at it, but I was trying to get better. Yeah, so if you can study and prepare, that affects a little bit of that validity and reliability piece of it, right? And ideally, these are things that, someone's giving to you, you're not looking at them frequently. But if you were motivated to get better at it, you could, but IQ isn't static. Right, it's relatively stable, but you could make it go up or down depending on your effort. So it might just artificially inflate your score if you're very driven to get better. So that could be a problem. I have an intelligence test for you. Don't start it yet. So I'm gonna hand it out. This one has problems, but it's better than the last one. It's got one more knowledge to it. Okay? So don't start until I tell you. And if you look at it and you're like, I have no clue what we're doing, don't feel panicked, I'll explain. And somebody was like, I can't do it already, I'm just my intelligence is too poor. Let me explain first. Okay, what was that? No, well, I think there might be one or two little ones. Like, I'm done, I'm out. There you go. Okay, so you're not turning this in. And again, I see some of you looking at me like I don't get it. That's okay. Okay, so if you're looking at this, what would the answer to number one be? 24 hours in a day. Okay, so you're trying to figure out what the letters stand for. So number one, so you have one freebie, 24 hours in a day. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 10 minutes, a little bit less than 10 minutes. Work on it on your own. Don't look up the answers, right? But answer as many of them as you can. If you don't know it, skip it. We'll come back to them. But try and get as many of them as you can. And we'll go over it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. About 5 more minutes. We have about 2 more minutes. You're back. Just about another minute. Got 20 more seconds, so kind of finish up on the one you're on, baby. Mm. All right, you go ahead and stop wherever you're at, or finish the writing when you're at and then stop. So let's go through these together. If you're close, give yourself credit. If you have it, obviously give yourself credit too. And then we can talk about this one. It is, you know, you can choose, but it's better than the last one. It's definitely a little bit better. So we said the first one was hours in a day. What's the second one? Let's go ahead and say it if you know it. Say it's better. Letters of the alphabet. Very nice. Number 3, days of the week. Excellent. Number 4, wonders of the world. Nice job, right? You kind of get in like a rhythm with these, I think, sometimes. Or you don't. It's one or the other, right? Number 5, signs of the zodiac. Nice job. Number 6, books of the Bible. Books of the Bible.
That's it.
Well, nope. Yeah. I like that. That's funny. I mean, that's funny, right? Bottles of beer on the wall, right? Okay. Number 7. Number 7. Cards in a pack without jokers. Did you get it?
I just put in a deck.
Oh, in a deck, but yeah, but in a pack or in a deck. Yeah, it's close enough. Number 8. Yes, stripes in the United States flag. Nice job. Number 9. Golfers in here. Holes on a golf course. Right, it's so obvious once you know it, right? It's like, okay. My personal favorite, number 10. Yes, 31 flavors of Baskin Robbins, right? So we went there a few days ago and there were only 24. I mean, we were counting, but all right, number 11. What number? Toes on a foot. Toes on a foot. Number 12.
90 degrees.
Yes, degrees in a right angle. See a little bit of math, but not too, right? 13. 3 blind mice, see how they run. Number 14, science people. Temperature in degrees Fahrenheit at which water freezes. All right. 15. Digits in a zip code. They're like collective, like. All right, 16. Wheels on a tricycle. Nice job. 17. Cents in a dollar. A little bit more common there. Number 18. Players in a football or soccer team. All right. Next, backside. Number 19. Months in a year, right? I've got a lot on the one. Months in a year. Number 20. Pounds in a ton. Great job. 21. Tentacles on an octopus. Right? Important information. 22. Yes, days in February and a leap year. Love it. 23. Baseball people.
Innings in a baseball game.
Innings in a baseball game, right? Unless it goes over. Right? 24. Days in a year. Nice job. 25. Loaves in a baker's dozen. Right? 26. Weeks in a year. Weeks in a year. 27. Lives of a cat. I wish that were true. I wish they had 9 lives. The cats would live forever, right? 9 lives of a cat. 28. Minutes in an hour. 29. Science people. Pairs of chromosomes in the human body. Oh no, right? I've never had anyone get where did it go? Oh, I'm 32. I jumped again. 30. Number 30. Anyone on that one? Squares on a chessboard. 31. Planets in the solar system. Okay, 32. I've never had anyone get 32 before, ever, in like 15 years. Anyone? It's not our culture. Balls to an over in cricket. I don't even know what that means. Right? It's British. Oh, it's British, right? All right, number 33. Years in a millennium. And 34. 1 day at a time. Okay, add up how many you got right. If you were close, give yourself credit, but add them up real quick. Don't judge yourself based on your score, okay? I like it. All right, how many of you, by show of hands, got at least 6 of them correct? Look at all you somewhat intelligent people, right? Okay, great job. Keep it up if it's still like 7 or more, 8 or more, 9 or more, 10 or more. We lost a couple. 11 or more, 12 or more. Now we're in the intelligent category, right? Anyone get more than 15? How many did you get?
16.
16. Anyone else? 15, 16? Right, you are the most intelligent person in the class. Very nice. I only got 12 right when I took it the first time, if that makes you feel better. So what are some of the problems with this? So it's not the worst. Okay, it could be way worse than this, but why is it not the best test of intelligence? Yeah.
I mean, I can watch sports, so I didn't even think about sports when I was reading some of these.
Sure. Okay, so sports wasn't on your radar, so that made that hard for you. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I think the number of beer bottles on the wall, like, it'd be just as valid as the number of books in the Bible. I don't know if I should have said that, right? Okay. But like, right, you could interpret it in multiple ways. It could have multiple answers depending on the person. What else? There's a couple other hints, yeah.
Dyslexia.
That would be really tough, right? If you have dyslexia, you would reverse it. It would make it very hard for you to get that correct. What else? Why else is this not great? Yeah. And we're going, yes.
It's really just like your exposure to all of these like
Yeah.
common, like common sayings. So like if you're younger, you may not have heard it as many as if it's older. Or
Yeah.
if English was your second language, like definitely.
Right.
That would
If you haven't been to Baskin Robbins before, then it would be hard to know that one, right? Like, so it's exposure to very common like phrases, which may or may not be familiar to you depending on where you were raised, depending on your primary language. Did you have a thought as well?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking of like what parts of that word, like.
Sure.
So like when I put like for the zebra, and I really couldn't believe it. Yeah, like pray something now better than.
That could be accurate. You never, depending on the zebra, right? You never know, right? Yeah. Yeah. This is one niched area of intelligence, and it's more like your common like sayings, like we talked about, than it is necessarily intelligence. It's one very small area. So maybe some people are really good at like filling in the blanks and picking up patterns like that. Other people might struggle. Okay, so it's one very small, tiny little area of intelligence. I do appreciate that they have multiple, there's like science questions and there's different like sports questions. There's an ice cream question, right? Like we're trying to get a little like bit of variety. That could be a strength, but if you're not a sports person or you're not a science person, right, that could hurt you. What if I gave it to you again right now? Right? I would hope you would all do quite a bit better, right? Like you'd be like, oh, I already know the answer. Now, I could counter that by doing something called split half reliability. I could give you half the test and then give the other half to you afterward and compare. That'd be one way around that. But if I gave it to you a second time, your scores would go up drastically, right? That's a limitation. There's no like room for measuring it that way. It's very cultural, which is another, like as a couple of you brought up, that's a problem with the validity as well. Like there are issues with this, but it's better than the Oreo test, right? In terms of those 3 psychometric properties, Oreos are better, but this was a little bit more reliable and valid. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and can you talk about when it's?
I mean, like it's real, but it's not, it wouldn't be used in like, in assessment, but.
What is it? When is it used? Where do you get it?
Oh, it's just for fun. Like, but it is like an actual, like somebody created it, but it would only be used for fun. So it's a measure of intelligence, but created by somebody who was just like playing around with it. Okay. So it's not like an actual, it's not like the Wechsler or the Rorschach, if that's what you meant. Sorry, I might have misunderstood.
It's got some validity to it, more about creativity and thinking. outside the box kind of,
Yeah,
right? So this one like a Saturday test.
No, in that
exists
way, no.
Somewhere and
no, so it, like, if you wanted to give it to somebody in your life and compare your intelligence, right, you could do that for fun, but don't put too much stake in it, right? That number means nothing, right? So if you got like 7 and you're feeling low, like rip it up and throw it away, right? Like I give you permission, like it's fine. It means nothing. It's not a real test in that sense, but it is something that someone created and exists in the world. If that makes sense. So with an intelligence test, a real one, we want it to be like this, where it has multiple dimensions, it has room for all of those things, it's been tested, it's been standardized, this better, but issues, okay? I do have one good test for you, which I'll give you next time, of personality. So you'll see what one good one will look like. One more, let's get to one more slide and then we'll stop for today. One other thing that we can do when it comes to assessment, and again, we're doing our battery of tests, so some are relevant and some aren't. This one's also used a lot with children. Naturalistic observation or some variety of that. So there's a couple of like offshoots of it. Anyone taken a child development class here? Well, a bunch of you, right? So I don't know if you've had the opportunity, but they have those two-way mirrors at the Child Development Center, and you can look through and watch the children. It's often an assignment that you're given. That's called an analog observation. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that fun? Like, really interesting, right? My youngest, my oldest, when she was 3, went to our Child Development Center, and I would go down there all the time to watch her through the glass, right? And she didn't know that I was there. So after school, I'd be like, I saw what you did today. I'd like to see what she came up with, right? Like, she'd be like, she's such a good kid. Like, she never did anything like that. But like, I'd be like, I was watching you. She's like, where? You know, and then like, she'd always stare at the glass, like, are you back there? Right? But you can do this in a few ways. So analog observation is what's happening in this picture. Okay, it's an artificial environment where you're watching someone with a purpose. Maybe you're watching how many times a child plays with a certain toy, or they fight over something, or how a couple interacts when you leave the room. Okay, it's something that's set up purposefully to record. It'd be so interesting. I would never do this because I think it would, I'm too sensitive, I think. But I could put a like camcorder or like a microphone in there and leave for 10 minutes and just listen to what you say. Right? Like that would be an analog observation. I would never do it, but you could do it in theory, right? You could observe when someone isn't there. Or you can do more of like a naturalistic observation. This is like people watching with a purpose, okay? People watching, so fascinating to me, especially couples on a date in a restaurant. I love the moment when the check comes, I'm always like watching, but try not to be creepy about it, right? But really interesting to watch people in their natural environment. How do they act? Right? Bunch of kids on the playground. Who plays with who? What do they play with? What do they do? How many times do they fight? Right? You can observe a lot of things. Think of that video we watched of the couples in counseling, right? Where do they sit? Right? That's kind of a form of observation. So you can watch people in the environment and gather information. The downside is you don't know why they did what they did. And you don't always have all the information, but you can get it very like unbiased if they don't know you're watching them. Or if you watch for long enough with the second one, people forget that they're being watched and they eventually start to act kind of naturally. You can also observe yourself. It's a really, really common thing to do. Self-monitoring, journaling, okay? Keeping track. Let's say you're struggling with addiction and your therapist or whoever is assessing you. So I want you to keep me a log, right? When do you use the substance? When do you think about it? Who are you using it around? Right, let's gather all that pieces of information. That's self-monitoring, where you're kind of recording your own behavior and observing yourself to get a better understanding. So this is another thing that we can add, right? We can watch somebody or even have you watch yourself for a period of time, and that can give us information about a behavior that we're interested in. Yeah. So that's when you set up a situation, like the child development class we're talking about. Would be more analog versus natural observations are when you're observing someone in a natural setting, right? It hasn't been set up in any way. Yes, so analog is when you like create a situation. Okay, so we'll pick up here next time. We'll talk about personality inventories, and I have kind of a fun one to give you that is a good test. I won't see you on Monday, right? We have a holiday, so have a wonderful long weekend. But when I see you next week on Wednesday, we'll pick up here. Take some more Oreos before you go, otherwise I have to eat them all. Help me, all right? They're right here or back there, like take some more on your way out. Here, I'm gonna put them up here so that you do. Save me from them.